So next what we're going to do is we're going to refine our hearts a little bit. So these are needle files. They come in kits. And you can get the diamond ones, but let me recommend that you don't get the diamond ones, that you get the regular files. There's different sizes. These do not have handles because they go in it's kind of like a pin vise or a pin handle, but honestly, as small as they are, when I'm working in tight places, I like to be able to just hold them like this rather than have the long big handle. Now these did come with handles. They're not big handles though, so they're great to use. And I don't even know where I got these. I know you can get these at Rio Grande. The great thing about these, for instance, this one is round. It does have a tapered end. But you can get, and if you look on the back side, you can, if you haven't removed your Sharpie, you can see, so right here, obviously following my Sharpie didn't give me a perfect heart, but I can change that. Now I could go back in with my jeweler's saw and refine that, or I can just take my files. Now that's a really tiny little heart, so I'm just going to take the very tip of this and I'm going to ream out, just twisting it. I'm going to ream out that top part of that heart, and you can see how it's changing. And I'm pushing out to make it go out. I'm pushing in that direction and I'm twisting. And you can see how it's refining that heart shape. Now also, I didn't quite, because of that, I didn't quite get the, I need to flatten this just a bit. So I'm going to take this flat file and I'm just going to go back and forth. I'm going to work on both sides of the heart until I get the shape that I want. And that looks pretty good. I'm not going to do everything I want to do on shaping it, because when we texture and it displaces the metal, I may want to come back and do a little bit more. So I just wanted to do part of it, and I'm going to just continue on, and I'm going to work on these hearts, just cleaning them up a little bit. Of course, if my Sharpie lines had been a little better, I wouldn't be probably having to do this. But thank goodness for files. Normally I would be doing this on my bench pen, and I would be holding it like this and doing this, but I know that it's difficult for you to see that way, so that's why I'm holding them here. But use your bench pen to anchor your pieces while you're filing. Now, unlike when we file the edges, we're using these in a different manner. So you can lay them right over that hole in your bench pen or in this space here. Hold them tight and then just file up and down. Okay, now I'm going to check my earrings. Now remember, these are whimsical hearts, so don't get all caught up in the lack of symmetry in them. This is a learning process, and we're learning piercing for the first time, or maybe you've done a little piercing, but I wanted a project easy enough you wouldn't be concerned about the symmetry while you were learning to do the piercing. And I think that one looks good. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go clean the Sharpie off, and then I'm going to file the corners. Now obviously I've already filed the two corners on, the four corners on each of these, but I'm going to show you how to file the corners next on this one. So now I'm going to file the corners. You can see here I've already filed the corners in the earrings. And I'm just going to put it in the notch in my bench pen. I'm going to take my large file and I'm going to go up and over. Now the very first pass, or even maybe the second as well, it's going to feel strange because that very sharp corner is going to want to catch in those file grooves. That's okay, you're not doing anything wrong, but you are the boss of it. So you just continue up and over and press firmly. That is what's going to bend that over, and you're going to catch, the catching is going to stop a lot sooner. You want to make sure that your file and your piece is perpendicular. This needs to be flush against the edge. Stop periodically to make sure that your edges are, or your corners are symmetric. You can choose how much to file your corners. You can file them a lot or a little, as long as they all match. You want all of these corners to match. Actually, I am filing these a bit more because it's a bigger piece. I think it will balance it better. But my earring corners are the same. Now remember, after you file, there are going to be little bitty burrs that stick up, and you're going to want to just gently take your file and knock those off. And you will have to do that on both sides. Now you might want to also look at your edges. If your edges need some filing, take a couple of passes. If you sawed your pieces out with your jeweler's saw, or even if you used your joist chins, they may have an uneven edge, just a slight one. So just take your file, make a few passes until you've got a nice even edge. Now, it's true that I am actually going to texture clear out to the edges. And I think that looks really pretty to have that textured edge. So you might be thinking, well, if we're going to texture clear out to the edge, why do we need to file those edges smooth? When you're making jewelry, always do more at each step than you think will be required, because I'm here to tell you, when you get to the end, you will notice. I see pieces a lot of times with beginners, and they have really cute designs and they've done a really good job, but I can tell if they didn't do their finishing and their polishing as they went. There are times that you just can't get back to that place to finish it in a way that you would like it to be finished in the end. For instance, I have filed this smooth, and once I texture it, this will be rippled, and if I were to file it, I would file off the rippled edge. So there would be no way to remove at that point any imperfections with the file. So once I've moved them, and then when it rumples that edge and ripples that edge, it won't have those fine imperfections that it had before filing. So just remember, always polish, always file, many steps through the process to make your piece in the end have the beauty that it really can have. So what we're going to do in this step is we are going to texture. So you're going to want to place your piece on your steel block, and I'm using a ball peen hammer. Any size ball peen hammer will work. I like to hold my piece with my fingers opposite. Remember, when you texture and you're displacing metal, that it can curl. But if you hold your fingers in opposite, in opposing directions, that will eliminate or lessen. You don't need a big, heavy hammer blow. You do not need to hold your hammer very tight. Just hold it gently and let gravity be your friend. Don't get in a hurry with this process. Overlapping pattern is going to be best, because unless you want a pattern where you see each individual hammer blow, and that's your pattern, that's fine. But if you want a wavy, hammered texture, make sure that you do overlap your hammer blows. Now I am hammering clear up to the edge and on the edge of the heart. And there I have my hammered, textured earring. So I'm going to continue to texture both of these, and you should do the same, and then we will get back to the next step. Now I have all of my pieces textured. What I want to do now is I want to look at my hearts. I did file them out before, but once they've textured, remember, some displacement has gone on. So what I'm going to want to do now is I'm going to look at my hearts again, and I'm going to check to see if there is anything I need to file in them to bring them back to the shape that is most pleasing to me. So I'm going to pick up the pendant, because I notice I do need a little bit more work on this round part of this heart. And you can look at the back too. Sometimes with the texture it's difficult to tell. So on this part of the heart, it's a little too flat for me. So I have this file that is curved on both sides, and I'm just going to run it on that edge to try to soften that straight line. And you can see how that softened that. Okay, I believe that one's fine. I think he looks good. So there are my textured and hammered hearts. Now at this point they're incredibly hard. We have work hardened them into a very, very, very hard piece of metal. So what we're going to do next, before we go on to the next step, is we're going to anneal them. Okay, so now we're going to anneal our pieces, and I want them on as flat a surface as my charcoal block has. I'm going to light my torch. Now I'm going to turn some of my lights off to see if I can get you a better view while heating the metal. When we're annealing argentium, what we're looking for is for the metal, not the flame, to turn to a peachy color. We do not want it to turn bright red. Okay, we will let those sit and cool. We'll quench them, and then we're going to make our little jump rings. No, then we're going to form them, and then we're going to make our little jump rings to surround our holes. So I have annealed them, and then I've cleaned them up, and I actually took my wheels, my little 3M wheels, and I gave them a good polish. I probably will do that again at the end, but I wanted to go ahead and get as much of the polishing done now as possible, because we are going to put those little jump rings on, and we're not going to be able to get back down under that ever again. So go ahead, give them a good cleaning. It will also help you see if there's any more filing that you need to do, or if your texturing's not quite right. Now is a good time to go ahead and take care of that, because once we dome these or put that soft curve in them, we won't be able to get back in there and do that the same way. So I have a little swag block here, and we have used this before. It's a very inexpensive tool and one I didn't buy for a long time, but once I bought it, I use it constantly. And it does have different sizes in it. Now I have used the longer dowel for another project, but I'm using the one that comes with it. It has a handle, and it's very convenient because you can move it and get that doming correct. So I'm going to place the first earring right there in the center. I'm going to put the doming dowel straight down, and I'm going to take my brass hammer and I'm going to hammer it down in there. Now I want to stop because I want to show you that sometimes you're not going to get a perfect curve right away. That's why it's really convenient with this to move it and make sure that you get that curve consistent. Make sure that you are laying the front face down in the swag block, and for the first pass, set your dowel straight up and down. Get it down in there very well, and then go back and forth with good strong blows. Now we're going to do our pendant the same way. Center it in there. Now it's obvious that this does not stretch the entire length. I'm going to put it in the center, and then I'm going to go back and forth and up and down. And there we have our pendant. Now, if that is a little too curved for you, just as we did on our earrings previously, you can take your leather mallet and just gently tap some of that curve out. Which I think looks very nice on the pendant. Also, I think it might look good on the earrings to take some of that curve out. You want to lay them next to each other to verify that you've got the curves the same. Yeah, that looks very nice to have just a slight curve rather than an acute curve. Now I'm just tapping gently because I don't want to completely take out the curve. Okay, now we will go on to the next step.